Hey guys, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host, Random Vaughn, and you are watching at Dank's Wonder Emporium on Dank Network. And today I have with me the owner of the Alice Group, not the A-List Group as I often call. So, Kyle, tell us about, there's a lot of confusion around the name. A lot of people talk about it all the time. Even our bud tenders are always calling it one thing or another. We normally just do whatever the customer says. So tell us about the name.
So I've often had that same scenario, and first I wanted to thank you guys for having me on this show. This is we're super excited, and it looks like a lot of fun. And so thank you for having us as your guests and letting us be one of your customers. And the Alice Group, aka the A-List Group, is basically, some people pronounce it a little differently, and most of my customers, I would say about 75-80%, say A-List because that's the way it looks. Originally, it's my kids' acronyms. I wanted to be higher up on the 502 list when they were just making all the lists and whatnot, and so I used their acronym, and we've quickly changed probably from the Alice Group to the A-List Group, but we just answer yes to either one, and we don't mind if our customers say either way.
You don't care what you get called as long as they call you to dinner, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So being on the top of the list, I can only imagine you must have just gotten way more cold calls from any marketing company or anybody just needing to want to get a hold of someone selling weed. Is that what happened?
I assume they're calling everybody on the list, but we're definitely first on there, right? And we were also the first processor only in the state.
Oh, really?
So I guess it's all right being, called first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we'll dive into that more in a little bit.
Yeah.
But guys, just so you know, I want to put the shout out. Remember, you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope. And so if you guys have questions for Kyle here with the Alice Group, I almost did it again. If you have questions, guys, please post those in. We will get to as many of them as humanly possible. Jeff's going to be shooting those over to me, and I'll be feeding them to Kyle. So, guys, you guys, we go live at 2 o'clock every day, and so to get right in on it, you guys were the first processor in the state. Now, what kind of processing were you doing? Were you doing BHO, PHO, CO2? Tell me more about that.
So maybe I'll just back up. I was in the medical cannabis business before 502. And I, as the sole owner of the A-List Group or Alice Group, we applied for 3 different producer processor licenses.
Smart.
And I also got my location right away when I was in medical, so I could do my distribution business. I used to distribute BHO and cartridges for a few of the top companies, and then flour to about 35, 40 stores in medical. And then when I transitioned into 502, our location, we were a processor only. Now we also have a producer processor license. But our first license that we got the first summer was to process only. We were buying cannabis from other growers and packaging it, putting it into joints. So we don't actually process our own oil as of yet. We have good partners. As I know you work with Hanu. We use them a lot to do our product. And so as a processor, we came up with different brands and packaging and, finding high quality, middle of the range and value product for the different needs of the market.
Oh, fantastic. Let's dive more into the medical side, where you come from, all that kind of stuff. People always love to know kind of how people got here and those kind of things. So take me back also for the viewers, where are you guys currently located? Where were you located in medical days?
So I believed in, going all the way into recreational, and so we were at the same location. Our processing office is in the SoDo district in Seattle, and we started as Seattle Refine's main distributor.
Really?
They really had a route right in Seattle, and I thought that wasn't fair for the rest of us in the state, and so I started coming down south here and going up north and became their main distributor, and picked up a few other lines as well, and started providing flour and cartridges and different like BHO, CBD pills and whatnot for the different patients. And then as the transition happened, we closed out our medical stores. We took care of the ones that lasted as long as they lasted.
Yep.
And then as the laws changed, we just followed the laws because we were already licensed 502, and we wanted to stay, just stay compliant, right?
Man, I'm just letting you know we will obviously. I got a lot of questions about that and those kind of things. So you're now in Soto. You've always been in Soto. That's great. So you had a partnership with Refined Seattle, guys. For anyone who isn't from Washington, we have a big French following. They always love to message in. It's great. Yeah, you know that you just tapped out all my French. So we love those guys, but so for the people, Refined Seattle obviously became a very, very big brand in the medical days. And so you decided to be basically their South End distributor. Is that correct? Kind of like Tacoma, Puyallup, Olympia? What are we talking?
We were going to have me as their sales guy, and then right away we decided just to have me be the distributor. They had a few house accounts, and I basically took on this, wherever I wanted to go in the state.
Okay.
In the beginning in medical, it was a little difficult on the eastern side of the state.
Yes.
So we focused on the western side, and good people running good legitimate businesses, doing it right. And, we had a business license, and we, did all of our reseller stuff and everything. And so we just focused on running a legitimate business. I'm a family man, and so I promised my wife I'd always be home. And so that's the way we did it.
Nice. So with that, and I'm just going to ask you a couple things about their company and their brands. So they had, and correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am, it was Refined Seattle. They had the Clear, and then they had, it was like Northwest
Concentrates.
Northwest Concentrates, that's
and then
right.
They sold the dope cartridges when it was in medical, but not now in 502.
Gotcha. And so when it came time to apply, they obviously applied themselves. You applied yourself. And then are you guys still in a partnership? Because the reason I asked this question, for those of you who don't know, like some of the oil we have from you guys on our shelf have the logo of Extracted, which is the parent company corporation of Refined Seattle. Are you guys still in that partnership?
So 502, the recreational side it was a little more difficult, and now you could have processor to processor sales, but there was taxation and a few things in the beginning, and so it was hard for our partnership to stay together. But once I got my producer license, I was then growing my own marijuana. I was able to get them product to have oil made through them. And so
nice.
We have had their oil, and they've got great product and stuff. And we also like Hanu's product as well. And so,
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Oh, no good. The Hanu actually told us after it wasn't actually on air, but that they're literally in 20 other companies, that they do oil for a lot of people. So the guys doing the oil obviously staying very, very busy, which is good to hear. Okay, so guys, I know that one big question that's going to come up, and they're just waiting for me to ask it, is tell us about your guys' brands. Are you only the Alice Group, and that's all your brands, or do you have sub-brands? That's what's becoming very big in this industry, is one company has multiple brands, multiple identities. So how have you guys chosen to go about that? Bring us all up to speed.
Great. We definitely have been doing that from the start. It seems like there's different quality products, there's different kinds of products, and we, as the A-List Group, our logo and everything goes through on all of our packaging, but we've separated for our flower lines. We've got Tahoma Flavors, and our Tahoma Flavors is our higher-end premium, better, quality nugs, higher THC, better terpenes. And so everything in the 8th and up, it comes in a glass jar with some great visibility. Transparency with us is super important. You'll also see in our bags, we have our logo in the back. Our new bags are clear on the bottom. We want the customer that can't open it and smell it and touch it like they could in medical. We want them to get that experience, right? So now they can come in and get 50 strains, but they don't know what they're getting. We want them to at least see and have as much transparency. So we've got Tahoma Flavors. And then we've got the A-List Select, which also has a different bag line, which is our mid-grade greenhouse. Also a little bit better bud structure, and when we get it, it's not just how we get it with the marijuana. We want to make sure it's the right thing for the customer at the right price, right? And so sometimes we get it a great deal, and it goes in our sun-grown line, which is more of our value product.
Yes.
And it may even be indoor, right? But we've got a good price. We want to pass it along to you, our customer, which is your customer. And so so our third line of flower is our sun-grown. One of our newest lines, we launched it last summer in June, is Clear Vape. We have BHO distillate done by Two Heads.
Two Heads is the processor.
Two Heads is the processor.
Gotcha.
It's the can aroma. It's the old guys from the workshop for medical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so they wow, I didn't know that they changed their name. This is
so
news to me.
So
okay,
they have. So I guess I'll give you their background for a second.
Yeah.
They transferred the workshop as their testing. So that's in 502.
Yep.
And then they licensed their can aroma. Their what I call clear vape. And they process that for us. We've got. Right now we have 7 flavors and strains that we work with. And, that's a product that I always sold in medical was the cartridges, and thank goodness the quality. I waited because I just didn't want my brand to be tainted with a faulty cartridge and all that stuff, because we really stand by. We want to know if there's something going on. We want to stand by our product and whatnot, and so we partnered up with them. They have a quality product. It seems to have really no leakage issues, so we've got, and I like it because it's got a really nice, burning flavor. The terpenes are nice, and it's a good buzz as well.
Nice. Yeah. I have a ton more questions about that, but I am going to steer us away just for 1 second.
I forgot to tell you about lava rocks, though, and then we've got joints and our keep bombs, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, there was some that you didn't mention. I'll bring those up. Okay, I'm just going to steer us away, and we're going to come right back.
Yes, sir.
A question has come up on through Instagram. And so I'm going to give my answer to it, and then I'm going to let you chime in on this. The question is, what extract process gives the largest yield? And in my opinion, if you were just going for a yield base, it would be like a BHO because of the solvent. However, that is going to give more lipids and fats, and so you're going to get more yield, but your THC is normally going to be lower. So, but if you're just going for a yield number, I don't think you can really do that when you're comparing concentrates, because what you really want is just how do you get the good stuff. You know what I mean? You're trying to make a concentrate, meaning not taking all the other stuff. So in your opinion, what gives the highest yield of just the good stuff?
Okay, and first of all, and when I say my opinion, I'm a connoisseur in the oil, but I'm not an extractor personally, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So I want to clarify that. And in my experience from just extracting with different folks and talking about the different processes, in general, BHO does, as you say, give off the better yield. But even within BHO, it's how much you refine it thereafter.
Exactly.
Right? And so every company has their different processes about how they do it. Truly, it's how the pre-run or the product ahead of time has been taken care of. Was it, how fresh is it? Was it left out? Did they get rid of the fan leaves? We're very particular all the way to our farm. Is I don't know where this stuff is going. We get rid of the fan leaves. It could be we want to take care of it, and so I'm a personal fan of BHO. I think that CO2 can have its different terpenes and can really give some different flavors. And CO2 is definitely it definitely comes out with a much less process. The percent is definitely lower your yield with that. And then I've never really dealt with any other extraction methods, and so I prefer the BHO, which is light hydrogen extraction. And then when you move it into the clear process, you're refining it even more, and then you're talking about losing another half of your yield and cutting it in half again. And
Exactly. The yield starts definitely taking hits, but the quality sure takes a jump up.
Yes, sir.
So, anyways, getting back to the brands, because there was still things. So I'm just going to try and list off all the ones that you said, and then you fill in all the places where I'm missing. Okay. So we have the Alice Group flour. I'm just going to say. And then guys, if you've seen that comes in their jars for the larger quantities, normally very cool graphics, normally higher test results. We've gotten a lot of stuff from you guys above 30%, like your Cheesequake and those kind of things. Then we have your sun-grown, which is either greenhouse or just straight outdoors, kind of my understanding of that product. Then if we go into the pre-rolls, there's 2 different brands. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Every time I see how you say it, I still see Tacoma in that word, and it's
Tahoma.
Tahoma. Okay, so I always see Tahoma.
Tahoma's the original name of Mount Rainier. Oh. And so,
but they renamed it after the beer, right? That's what we did.
And so that's the Indian name of it. And so there are a few other things that are Tahoma, more in Pierce County, up above there. And so, it is Tahoma. It does look like it. We want to, and then if you look at the logo, it is a more modern version of Mount Rainier.
Okay, that explains the logo. So, okay, we have Tahoma, and then you have where you have the normal Alice group with like you put in the keef and you have like the bomb line.
Yeah, we have the bomb line. So
and stuff. People love that, especially for the price point. Getting over 30% test results just because of adding in that keef for we sell them here at like $4 and some change. I mean, they're like that. You can't beat that.
The thing with the keef for me is we don't keef our marijuana, but we hand trim everything to get it to perfection, and they're working over trim bins, and the keef comes off, and so what we want to do is we want to give it back to you, right? And so we put it back in the keef bombs. We want them to be separate so that people know if they're not expecting a real strong joint that they shouldn't even be having that, but and we put enough so that it's strong, but it still burns. It's really important. If you put too much keef, then it's like it chokes it up, and so we have a nice blend, and hopefully it works well.
Nice. And then I know we've had your oil that has been done by extracted. I don't believe we've ever gotten any of your Hanu line of oil. And then you now also have cartridges, which I don't know if we've had. We may have carried, but I'm blanking on it right now. But all your cartridges are 100% the clear. You don't do any CO2 cartridges or anything like that?
It's not the clear. It's clear concentrates. I just want to be super clear because that is a brand that's connected to Refine. So it's a clear concentrate. It's a distillate of DHO.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We call it clear vape. And it's very flavorful. We've got strains. We have flavors. It's a very clean buzz. And we are talking about... getting some, to answer your true question, is we're talking about getting some CBD, and right now I'm working with somebody who I might be getting it in CO2. I'm just trying to, basically I need to grow more of my own CBD so I can control that situation and have a higher end product, and so that's probably something we're going to come out with this winter.
Oh, great. Okay, so let me dive in on that because everyone wants to know, what does your facility look like? What's a day in the life there? So I'm going to ask some questions down that line. How many? So are you a tier 1, 2, or 3?
So we're a tier 3. We actually got our license a year later, after our processor license, on the same day. It was very strange, on July 24th. And we're a tier 3. We're up in Tonasket, which is near Omak. It's the northeastern part of the state.
Okay.
And the first year we were just outside full term. And then last year we built 6 greenhouses.
Nice.
And so we started doing our own light dep and really got to control so much of the environment, right? It's windy or, it's this or that. And it was a rainy June. We don't normally have a lot of rain. And so really helped out.
Nice.
And we are in negotiations to buy a 14-acre parcel and expand to be at our full capacity.
Oh, fantastic.
And so next year we should be in a facility that I own that I'm not leasing, and we'll be putting up light dep greenhouses and running our full term and being more of a year-round grow operation as well. Gotcha.
And just so that I'm clear and the people at home are clear, I always like to give some detail because not everybody's in Washington and not everyone's in weed knows all of our terms. A tier 3 is someone who has an allowed canopy, which is the largest of over 30,000 square feet. And I believe there's some, like if it's outdoor, you get a little extra, or indoor, whatever. But normally the standard term is 30,000 square feet. Gotcha. So when you're going to do, you said 14 acres?
Well, it's a 14-acre parcel, but that won't be. We're going to set it up for 4 farms.
Gotcha.
And I'm on a 1-acre parcel, which a lot of these, I'm in a 10-pack. There's a few of these large 10-packs where there's a bunch of farms next to each other, and it's not a lot of space to be able to do the full capacity. And so we want a little breathing room. My greenhouses are 4 feet apart. We can't even drive a Bobcat in the middle, right? And so
wow, you put them 4 feet apart. You really are packing them in there.
You got to pack it in, right?
So you know what I mean? And I'm never good with square footage, and so you have a 1-acre parcel that's only about like what 40,000 square feet.
It's 43,800 to be exact.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna know exactly because I got that 4 foot in between. Ooh man, but I mean, you did fit 6 what greenhouses essentially. You fit 6 because a lot of people aren't even doing that on their. We go visit farms and a lot of time they have 1 or 2 or whatever, and they just kind of put them off to the side. So you packing 6 on there, you definitely went to go get all of it. You know what I mean?
I usually go big. I just we were talking about doing a few, and we were getting it all set up and bringing in the crew, and it might have been much putting 6 up at the same time, but we were able to pull it off. We had some amazing product come out of there, and I was just up at the farm yesterday. Our pots came in, and we were getting ready to go out for our first round, and so the girls are all getting to be about waist high and ready to go out and start getting some fresh air, and so we're super excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you did what a lot of producer processes where we're seeing more and more common, where you kind of have your processing facility in a more commercial zoned, city zoned area, and then just go find land somewhere way out there in one of these co-op areas or whatever. It's just where you can just go in and license, no problem. In doing that, was that always your plan, or did you kind of let the market figure it out and you saw that because of where prices were going and all that kind of stuff, that then you made that decision to go out and decide to go greenhouse? Or was your plan always to be in greenhouse growing?
What a wonderful question. I was always a distributor. I used to be in my office, and people would come from all over the state and bring me their products. And so to be competitive, I applied for all the licenses in the beginning, not knowing. And I also have a motto that's crawl, walk, run.
Smart.
And I am successful, in my opinion, because I have good people around me. My team is what helps me get there. But I try to, I did put up 6 greenhouses, but we self-funded it. We did it, you know what I mean? And so we are making sure that we get there. But yes, these big guys that have $10, $20 million vested in these properties, and they're, lowering their prices, and so we had to be able to do it economically with quality. And when I had the opportunity, I don't necessarily love the 5-hour drive away from the house, but being, circa here in the city allows us to go to different locations. We're still very open and do deliveries all around the state, and so we don't want to neglect our other folks that aren't over here. But yes, we do. We separated it because really I'm a family man, and I had to be closer to my family, and I couldn't be all the way up by the farm, right? So,
yeah, exactly. No, that makes sense.
And the greenhouses, when we did the outdoor, I just wanted control over the quality, right? With weather and all that stuff. And so with the greenhouses, it's not as expensive as indoor, but it gets us, closer to controlling it and making sure we're protecting the product.
Exactly. And I mean, you can get more turns in a year. You're getting, are you going all year round, or do you still have to close down at least for some of the winter?
We with our current situation, you need a lot of extra light, and so that would have been a different scenario. And so this expansion will turn us into a year round.
Oh, okay.
And so we'll keep it going year round and whatnot.
Nice. Yeah. So how much power are you having to bring in for that?
That is the impetus of buying the new land. Is every time I want to do anything, is how much is the power going to cost?
Yes.
And our infrastructure at our existing farm is quite expensive, right?
Yeah.
And so. To bring out to go year round, you've got to fully light out the greenhouses, and you basically have to make them much closer to an indoor grow scenario. And then you talk about insulation, and so we'll minimize it so that and then there's the propane for the heat.
Yes.
And so I've been doing a lot of research. I like to dig in. I've been going outside the marijuana and inside the marijuana, talking to different kind of growers for perennials and different things like that, so I could really understand, because people have been growing commercially for forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so I don't love
when we stop being hunter-gatherers.
Yeah, so
we start figuring this out.
There's a lot of modern technology that just can be adapted properly to marijuana, and so we're looking at doing it the most efficient way, and so. But we are trying to get it to where we can go year round. I don't think we'll be at full capacity with our greenhouses, because the propane is probably more than the pot, right? And so at that point.
Yeah, that is very, very true.
Yeah.
Are you doing CO2 right now? Just since you bring up the heating of it, are you also putting in CO2, or you like to stay away from that?
I have a wonderful scenario where it's very windy, and so we've got these massive trap doors, and we've got Mother Nature giving us our CO2
Gotcha.
whooshing in there. It's pretty amazing, and so that's one of the things that once we're going to, go for more of a year round, that we'll be adding that. And I do think CO2, it's amazing. I used to run a restaurant, years before I did this, and there's so many different kind of growers, and just like chefs that can cook the same egg a different way, right? And so, but I have noticed that a lot of the growers that use CO2, that does seem to really help the product and whatnot. So it is something that we are entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, you have to build a completely different aspect around that. I know we're talking a lot on the show. This is the industry show. We're talking a lot about growing, but when you first mentioned, like, you start off as a distributor, and then you were moving this product around, and people were always bringing you their product, but it seems like you very much almost are the master grower now of your own side. Or is it just because you're doing the investment that you really want to know what you're investing in? You need to know exactly what the right thing to buy is, and that's why we're talking so much about this. Or is there someone right there now who is your master grower? Tell me about that.
Yes, great question. So I'm a hands-on owner, and so we do this as a team. So we've got on our regular staff at least 20 people year-round that are on staff, and I do have 2 growers, a master grower, an assistant master grower, and then a couple guys that have been with us and have been growing marijuana for a while as our regular employees. But I have found that not a lot of these people have done a massive grow where it's 100 plants, right? So it's not such a big deal to buy all new dirt or do all that stuff. But when you've got to write the check for $50,000 for dirt, right? You know what I mean? And everyone tells you it's beautiful land, you know what I mean? Why can't I just stick the plant in the dirt, right? But plants like specific stuff. And so we like to make sure we're doing it right, and we've thought it out. And so I reach out, I tell my kids every day, what did you learn today? And so I try to learn new stuff every day that make me better. And so I am not the master grower, but I am very involved and could answer like a lot of questions on a general sense. Because I want to make sure we're doing it right and we do it as a team. But I definitely reach out to, I know you've spoken to Matthew, who's our COO. He runs our operations, and then Rob is our operations director at the farms, and he's what you would call our master grower.
Gotcha.
And it's more than just growing, and so he's not just the master grower, right? It's, we've got to do this, and we've got to build this out and change this, and you've got to be adaptive, right? You know what I mean? And so, he was telling me the other day, he's like, I want to replace the film on our greenhouses because every year it builds up. You either have to do a special cleaning or it builds up like a 30% shade, and you're not getting as much sunlight.
Gotcha.
And so,
you're talking the whole, like the cover.
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought that you'd have to replace that every year.
It depends on which one you get. There's different cleaning methods and whatnot. And so, we're looking at, because some of them have a little bit of tears or this or that.
Gotcha.
And so at some point, if we get in there and start cleaning it,
might tear some more.
And I didn't realize that it was losing, light. And then he went up there and did a little test, and it was just like, you can tell, just from wind and dust and, things that go on, it's really the exterior that kind of picks all that up. And then
get to your questions. I appreciate you sending those on in, but don't worry, I'm getting to them. They are being sent over to me, so hang on in there, guys. Going to get your questions. I'm just following this down because we're having such a good chat. So with the greenhouses, you guys, they're not glass. When I drive by farms, some of them are these glass ones and the roof's open and that kind of stuff, and then there's kind of that more classic hoop house with just like a sheet.
Closer to hoop houses. So let me clarify to you what the difference between a greenhouse and a hoop house is. And so I should say that these are more hoop houses, because a greenhouse has solid plastic walls, right? And then some of them are hybrids where they have solid walls, right? And so it's more of like a glass top.
Yeah.
And so these are plastic covers, and it's oval. It's kind of like an upside down U, you would call it.
Yeah. But you have the ability to shade them from the inside or just on the outside?
There are a couple of different ways to do the light deprivation. We have an external one, and we're looking at doing an internal one for our next expansion.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, so now I'm getting to your questions. I much appreciate the patience. So we did cover kind of the light depth side of it. So are you guys using any microorganisms in your process. Talk to me about kind of your pesticides, talking about how are you guys giving the nutrients all the way to dealing with spider mites and all those kind of things.
Great. And so we buy a lot of predatory bugs to do this for us. Sometimes I feel like because we are in a pack that we have to concern ourselves more about our neighbors than our situation. And so we do it all organically. We've got, different regimens, and we hope our neighbors are just as diligent. I definitely offer advice, and I order extra ladybugs and send them out at the end of the property. And part of the expansion is moving away from that so we can be more under our own control and not, in a big where there's 10 different farms.
Gotcha.
But the guys up there are really taking care of that and making sure that everything is staying good.
Good. I have to admit, maybe you had heard about predatory mites before, but being in the medical for years and coming in, that is just literally this term that came out of left field once we got into recreational and everything was so much bigger. So maybe you've just had predatory mites
Never.
for years. Yeah, exactly.
But here's a praying mantis that just hatched yesterday up at the farm.
Nice.
I have a couple pictures.
I'll show you guys. There. Yeah, that's a big guy.
That's a little one that just hatched. They take a little while. And here, let me see. I think there's 2 pictures of it. Here's a close-up of it. There you go.
Wow. Sorry, guys. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the screens, but those are.
I can send it to you.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you have
We'll feed it in. But anyway, so let's get back more kind of the industry show.
Yeah.
So what we want to get into is, a big question is, how does somebody get into the industry? What is your advice as someone of an owner of a producer processor? I'm sure you get hit up with job applications. It seems like you guys are always hiring. I go to any job. It's not the retailers that are hiring. It's just everyone needs more trimmers or more growers, or more packagers or more grammars, whatever you guys are doing. So what is your recommendation for somebody looking to enter the marijuana industry?
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing because we have this industry that's just about to skyrocket throughout the world, let alone just our country. Obviously, people can have legitimate jobs and be growing marijuana and be paying their taxes, and you know what I mean. The biggest complaint is when they come home with their laundry, it smells like they're smoking bong hits and it's just their clothes, right?
Yeah.
So. My son says he smells the product, right? Because you go harvest, you're around the plants, you don't even notice it. And so I think there are different ways to do it. Every state, I think, it's all about location. And so if you're focused about where you are, then you might want to find out what your local rules and laws are and how you can get in, and figuring out a way to do it what's good for you to get experience, but also that could be good for your career.
Yeah.
Right. There are some of these states that if you're not with a pack that has $5, $10, $20 million, forget about it. So Washington is one of those states where literally you could have got in for $500, right? You know what I mean? The price of the license, if you could follow through and have all the other, P's and Q's, set up. And so I would tell you is to kind of figure out what kind of work you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. Not just getting in. It's not just a job where you can go smoke pot all day. Right. You know what I mean?
Amen.
And so that doesn't mean that you're not right. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that my employees, don't partake in that after hours, but when you're at work, you've got to get it done. And so it's a real job. And you gotta, know if you're going to move to an area. I think as an employer, I get a lot of stuff from all over the world and all over the country. And I have hired the man that you speak to, Matthew, my COO. He runs my company for me when I'm not there. I hired him from Florida.
Wow.
And I wanted somebody that was a little different, and everything I got was a lot of the same around here. And he flew out, and we interviewed and worked for a few days. And so I don't mind bringing folks in from other places, and I'm open-minded to it. I think it's having a good ethic, having a good vision, and a lot of people are always worried, well, I don't have a big marijuana resume, and I'm like, let me see what you've done and how you've done your regular stuff, because we're making widgets. They just happen to be green widgets, right? Or they're cannabis, right? And so if you've got good, solid people and they want to show up and work on time and not just be like, oh, I got a stoner job, right? Then so I would
I get free weed. That's all I get.
The free weed is just not possible with the state system the way it is. And so I think what's important is for someone to figure out what they want to do, be willing to, do, you gotta, start washing the dishes and move your way up. You know what I mean? In a kitchen, if you've never been a cook or anything like that. And so, I think, if you're going to college and you do some kind of horticulture, you could bring modern technology in. I think that helps you as a grower. And I think if you're trying to do other things, approach it like a business, right? And not like a stoner. And I think you'll have a much better chance at these people who are trying to run these companies.
I think that's a phenomenal answer. And I think if anybody watching, you should definitely take that as gold. So I have 2 follow-up questions on that real quick. How many people are at your guys' company, at your 2 facilities in total? How big is the Alice Group?
The Alice Group, that's now I'm calling it the Alice Group. You're calling it the real name. It's so funny. At the Alice Group, when we harvest, we've got a lot more folks that come in. We're at about 20 people right now. And towards the end of the summer, we're usually closer to 25. It's about 5 to 8 farmers on a regular basis, and then it just depends on who we have in the city working with us for packaging and processing and what have you. So.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So Matt, you hired him from Florida. You wanted somebody different. Was this a person who literally out of the blue just sent you an email and said, "Hey, I really want to move to Washington, get into the marijuana"? Like, tell me how did that connection get made?
I put out an ad. I don't know if I want to tell you the website because then that helps all my competitors. But
okay, a secret website.
The secret website, 420careers.com. I put out an ad looking for a right-hand man, right? A
Really?
right-hand person. And I got resumes from all over, from local, and 2 people flew in for the job. One from Pennsylvania and one from Florida. And I just wanted to meet the people and work with them and know that, we spend a lot of hours, right? You know what I mean? Is it someone who, sees the vision and wants to be able to, be part of the team? Because neither of us can do it by ourselves. You just need a team of people. And so having good people that you can trust. And once I wasn't sure, right? I was like, I don't know, but come on out. I want to, meet with you. And then after
Did
about
you
30
buy? Okay,
minutes,
now I got to ask. Did you buy the plane ticket or did he buy the plane ticket?
That's funny. Is I like people that are vested, so I paid for the plane ticket because I hired him.
Okay.
But he had to buy the plane ticket, and then I paid for his moving expenses to come out.
Okay.
Because I felt that was important. But he had to pay for the plane ticket. You know what I mean? And I
like
offered,
that. I like that mentality.
I said, when you get here, I'll pay for the hotel, I'll take care of all that stuff. If I hire you, I'll cover all the expenses of all of it. But if you really want this job, you need to be here. It's not something I could do over the phone. And he agreed to come out, and it was such a way. I think it was like drilling 2 steam vents in my shoulders and releasing so much stress. It allowed us to. It was right when I was expanding to open the farm, and I just couldn't be sitting in the office with everybody packaging. And so literally he was hired August 15th of 2015. Yep. And that was, I opened the farm. I got my license July 24th. And I was like right then at that time. And he knew, right? We had planned it. It had been a couple months. He had to reorganize his life. And I was like, all right, but come September, I'm going to be, I'm gone with harvest. And so you need to be
here,
you need to be here, and you need to understand the system. And he's great. You know what I mean? We go back and forth. I'm wrong, and I accept it. I listen to it. You know what I mean? And he's right. We work back and forth. And so, and the same thing with Rob. I wouldn't be able to have the farm without him as our, you would call him master grower. I call him, farm operations manager, because there's just so much more to it than just the plant. It's like we need a new water system. He's an irrigation expert. He's, you know what I mean? We put in. We have a well. We have a custom system and stuff. And so it's the team that helps me get here. That's for sure.
Gotcha. No, you can't do any of this on your own. The companies are too big. The demand's too big. All those kind of things. I just want to take a step back and kind of go back to a little bit of what we were talking about before. Is just how did you get into this industry? How did you choose to start working with Refined Seattle and those kind of things? You kind of mentioned that it was like, hey, and then all of a sudden it kind of before it was just, and all of a sudden you were there. I'm assuming that you weren't. We're closer to the same age, and so there was something we did before most of the time. So kind of tell me about how did you get into it?
So I had never done this business before. When I lived in Montana after I graduated college, I had a cat ski business. I took people backcountry skiing.
Oh, wow.
I had a backcountry restaurant, and then I had an Asian restaurant that was like a nightclub, all in the town of Big Sky. And then I sold like health insurance, like long-term care insurance for people that need care in the home for a few years. And when I came back to Seattle, the laws, I could do this industry that I believed in.
What year was that? Give us kind of
I came back. Now you're getting. I'm 45, so I came back here. I graduated from Bellevue High School, and then I went to Montana in Bozeman and Big Sky, and then I came back here, I guess, in 2012, and I opened up the Alice Group in the spring of 2013.
Yeah, you came back right at the right time
Yeah.
because, applications went in, I think, end of 2013 or late 2012, I always forget.
Yeah,
and stuff. Yeah, but you definitely, I mean, that's when medical was really starting to boom after the 2011 change in the laws and those kind of things. And that's when things really started to turn and change in Washington.
That's how I was able to be successful, is because Washington had an infrastructure, they had stores, and they just needed somebody who was a little bit more professional than people showing up with garbage bags. And I had receipt books, and I used an iPad to make receipts, and I was official, you know what I mean? And so...
Wait, so people aren't still using garbage bags? So there are people walking in our store still with the garbage bags, and you're like picking out the bags. So we're just always like, okay, man, I thought we'd moved away from this. But the Home Depot tote is the one with the yellow lid. That has become the standard that I always see nowadays.
It's interesting. Right when I got going, I was like, do we do it in the totes, or do we make it UPS style and put it in the boxes? And so we tried it in the boxes in the beginning to be more professional. What we found out is there were so many different boxes and all this stuff, and then it was wasting the cardboard, and then the stores were crowded and all this stuff. And so we send it now. We've got these plastic larger Ziploc bags, so we can keep it separated and keep all the strains different. And then we have our totes. But if you want it in boxes, we have the boxes in the back. I can send it with boxes for you.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we were talking a little bit off camera, so I'll bring kind of guys into the thing of like, if it's in jars and it's in a box, you can literally be like, well, there's a row of 4 and a row of 5, there's 20, move on. You know what I mean? It can go a little quicker. Yeah. But if it's in the bags, the classic bags for the grams or the 8s and those kind of things, then you just got to count them and that kind of stuff. We're constantly talking about like, man, we're going to get some kind of conveyor belt with a scanner, and it's just I'm going to get away from this counting. But we haven't. Then the barcodes don't read, and then then you're all back to square one of hand counting and those kind of things.
Well, I will tell you on the different end, I do a lot of the deliveries, so I do see the counting and know all that. And I don't know how you'd come up with a machine that would handle all of our barcodes, that would know which way it would roll and do all that. Because I'm ever trying to come up with a machine that'll help me package, so that you tell me you want 4,008ths in a week, and I could get the order done quite quickly with a machine. And so that's one of the things where, food packaging and growing commercially have been around. And so as, a state like California, once they go full throttle with this recreational, we're going to see so many innovations in our industry, because it's such a massive market.
Yeah.
That I think it's just going to bring attention to more things and innovation. And so sooner our jobs will be easier. Already there's better software programs and whatnot, and that are really helping out.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting what comes the next 10 years. Yeah. So a question that everybody always wants to know is, how many strains are you guys growing? I've heard from a lot of growers that they start off with like, we're going to have 300 strains, and everyone's whittling it down. Are you guys expanding your current strain count, or are you guys going and starting to more concentrate on just a few strains now that you've been in recreational for several years now?
I have had this philosophy from medical, and I believe that I could walk into one store and you're going to want these flavors, and I call strains flavors, by the way.
Okay.
And so, and the more flavors, the better, because I think having the ability to choose, like the customer now, people that used to have to wait for their drug dealer to come by or something like that to give them an ounce, and they waited 3 hours and it's one flavor. Now you can walk into a store and you could buy 100. You can choose the different, even within the strain, different growers have different ways of growing it. And so we often keep about 80 strains of different flavors. I've been trying to pare it back so that I don't have as many one-off scenarios. What I noticed is that I would prefer my customer trust my product and know that if they smoke my different strains, they're going to get a different buzz because of the different terpenes. If they just smoke, our XJ13, then they're not going to get a stone as if they have a little bit of this and they try a little bit of that, and then, and so having more flavors and more strains is always better, and I think it makes cannabis work better, especially with the entourage effect and what have you. And so I will always have a lot of strains. So what I try to do is always have a minimum of 5 to 7 strains per brand.
Okay.
And then, of course, with this market the way it is, it's so different than medical. We've got A-buds, we've got pebbles, and all these different things. And so we, like to use our name. We're not Indian of nature, but, we like to use, the pot all the way through the process, right?
Yeah.
And so we have, so when you get down to our shake and bake or our joints, there's going to be more strains in there, but we'll often have on our menu for regular bud strains. I try to keep it no less than 20. I think we don't put, like, if we have 40 in house, we won't put it on. So, because it's just too much on there, right? We don't want to make it overwhelming. We could just release it the following week or something like that.
Gotcha.
And so, but every store is, so you guys buy so differently, we can't put a finger on it. And so the less strains I have, the less sales I would have. And so having the variety gives you the choices to be like, that's what I want for my shelf, and your neighbor could want the exact opposite. And so being prepared is what we like to be. So I'm a strain whore. I have so many strains. We love it. So,
that's a new term I'm going to use all the time.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I said that live.
Yeah, exactly. So I find it funny that some people are like, well, we don't want to compete our brand against 2 other shops, so we'll sell these strains to this shop and these other strains to the other shop, and then we're not competing. Or it was like, okay, I don't see how that makes any sense. But I'm glad that you guys choose a lot of strains. We obviously have, I can't even tell, at least 20 plus in just the pre-roll section of your guys' strains, and anything from half or full grams or with the keef and those kind of things. So that's good. The one question that I always love to ask producer processors is, what is the number one thing you want a consumer, a bud tender, a patient, what do you want the number one thing them to know about your company?
I want them to know that we're there for you, right? And so for you as a store owner and a bud tender, that when you have our product, your customer is going to be satisfied, right? We seal all of our usable marijuana, and it's not required by law. I don't understand why it isn't, but we always have from day one, because I want to make sure the customer knows that nobody's gotten in there, and it's no longer like someone's pinching your bag or anything like that. It doesn't happen, right? We've got proper scales, and so for us to know that our customer can rely on us to have quality product. We don't get a lot of returns for our clear vape, but if you would ask me what my return policy is, I would tell you my return policy is your policy. What your company does is what we want to do. We stand by our products. And so just know that, whatever brand you're buying from us, whether it's our Tahoma flavors in the jar or our Alice Select, our Sungrown, our Lava Rocks, our Tahoma flavors joints, or our clear vape, we stand by it. We know that you're going to have a good, clean, quality buzz. We take pride in it, and if it's, and if something isn't going on, please reach out. Let us make us a better company, and we'll, fix it and go forward from there.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, we offer if it's too indica, too sativa, or you just don't like the flavor, stop smoking it, bring it back. We trade you on weight. And we obviously couldn't do that without also a partnership with all of our producer processors. And so, we quickly learned when we switched from medical to recreational that some companies were going to stand behind their product and some definitely weren't, where they're like, what do you mean you take a return? Tough shit. And it was like, okay, well, I guess we're going to remove your brand from our shelf and stuff. So we obviously took that hit because we did that for the customer. But the companies we now have on, and that's why we love having you guys on, because you stand up and you have to guarantee, you got to stand behind what you're growing and what you're putting in a pre-roll or a concentrator or whatever. That's great to hear. So what is the typical day at your guys' location? Kind of, everyone wants to know, what is the behind the scenes, what's going on? Do you guys all get there early in the morning? Do you guys show up more later? Kind of what is the atmosphere? What is it like at your guys' grow?
So I'll tell you the 2 different locations. So the grow, For some reason, the guys like to start earlier than I would imagine. I let them choose it.
Oh, okay.
And they get started early in the morning around 7:30. Sometimes if it's summer, they'll even do earlier. But the plants do need to be attended to throughout the day. And the first things first is the girls. How are the girls doing? You got to do a walkthrough, right? You know what I mean? For me, I love to do the walkthrough and pull the tarps. And then sit with coffee on the back porch, and you can see all my full-term farm and all the other farms, and just watch the sun come up. And so that's kind of fun to take a second before all the phones and all the busy work happens. Obviously, when they're clocked in, that's not the first thing they do is go sit down in the back.
Yeah.
But first we walk through and make sure everything's good and nothing is drooping or needing attention right away. And
So you guys do like a hand water then?
well, we right now they're not out planted out, right?
Gotcha,
And
yeah.
so, but we still do a walkthrough and make sure that nothing
Okay.
is tipped over, and they're living, breathing, things that you need to maintain. And so we use a dosatron for our feeding, and we feed through that way. And we've got drip lines into all of ours. But inside the buildings, when we're growing the clones and the baby girls, right, it is a hand feeding process. And
Yep.
so because we're on a limited space, and so we flip that room into a drying room as well come harvest time. And so so we hand feed in there.
Gotcha. Okay. This is going to be a question, and obviously I'm going to kind of stay on the Alice Group brand because that's kind of the biggest one that we know of, and I know you guys have your sun-grown, and it seems like your sun-grown is obviously designed to be of a cheaper price point for the end consumer. So Alice Group, if we were just talking about the Alice Group, what would that be? Would we normally find that kind of at the high top shelf, mid shelf, bottom shelf? Where do you want it priced? Why do you price it there to the end consumer? Kind of give us kind of your philosophy there.
So I have all three. I would probably personally stick with my Tahoma Flavors line, and but you need to. It's not about me, right?
Yeah.
It's about what the customers in the stores need and what they've got, and so having quality and value at the same time is a difficult thing. You've got to manage it and get it and have the different grades, we've separated it. I do look at all these different reports that are 6 weeks old. Some of these companies are more current, and you can see what the averages are. And so our top end Tahoma Flavors is nowhere near the top end for what stores are having to get stuff. And so and
You're talking about price per gram,
price
or something
per
like that.
gram,
Yeah, gotcha,
exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so when you're looking at it, I've seen other people that are charging more than we are on that point. And then we also, when it gets down there are some stores that want it for basically almost what it costs to put in the package, right?
Yeah.
And so we want partners that we can move forward with, right? We're not, it's got to be reasonable and fair for everybody. And so we just wanted to make sure that we could appease, all the different, categories, right? Because sometimes it's the beginning of the month and people are flush because they just got paid, you know what I mean? And then it's the end of the month and they need to still have good stuff that they can trust, but they want to have a little more value. And so, or that's where they buy it anyway, right? And so we just decided to separate those three flower brands in particular, and then keep our Alice Group logo. And so the Alice Group logo is on the back of all of it, but it's really it's Tahoma Flavors, A-List Select, and Sun-Grown are the three different brands. And the way I that's 1, 2, 3 in quality and price point and what have you. And so is the way I would kind of put it.
Gotcha, yeah. So I'm just going to reiterate to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You want to have flour of good quality at every price point for a consumer. That's what you're really wanting to be. It may be a different brand, But the thing is so you're going to have your top shelf. You want to have your middle shelf, and you want to have your specialty shelf, as we call it here, of which is the super deal and that kind of stuff. There are obviously brands that are cheaper than you guys, but there's obviously brands that are a lot more expensive. Is that am I kind of reiterating what you said?
Yeah, we're not trying to come out as the most expensive or the bottom of the line. We want people to know that they can trust the Alice Group product.
Yep.
And regardless of the brand they get it in, for what their budgets or their needs are at that purchasing moment. And so, fair, quality, and trustworthy is really our focus. And so you hit it on the nail. So we're far from the cheapest. We're far from the most expensive. We're very reliable. And we want to make sure you never run out on the shelf. Your customers aren't having to go to another store because you're not having their product. And God forbid that they're in a different city and they go to another store, they can see our product and trust that it's an Alice Group product, and they'll know that they're going to have, the same kind of quality they expect, whether they got it at Danks or somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what have you guys done to educate the consumer about your different brands and all this stuff? That's the one thing of companies keep releasing more and more brands, and then even their message of what is the difference in the brands gets cluttered. So what have you guys done? What have you found successful on how to connect with the end consumer and educate them about Alice Group, Sun Grown, I still want to say Tacoma, but Tahoma. Yeah, exactly.
So I struggle with this on a regular basis because education is difficult. We have tried a few different things. So first of all, I think the bud tenders are the most neglected. They're in the forefront of all of this.
Yeah.
You and I could talk all day, but they're there talking to the customers. And so educating the bud tender about what the brands are and what the purpose of it, I think is very, very important. I'm Canadian originally. I'm American now, but we're funny about our joints, and so for a while you might have seen the big lips, the Lick Me sticker on there on our joints.
Oh, okay.
People were saying they were having running problems or whatever, and so don't these people know they should just lick the joint a little bit, you know what I mean, and have a little moisture, and then it's good to go. And so we put a Lick Me sticker on there. We have a UPC code, a scanner that we put on there, and so people can go to our website and be educated on our different brands. And then just trying to make sure we separated our bags, and so that it's not just a label that separates it, it's the actual bag that looks different. But we tied them in so that they connect to the Alice Group as the main company. And then we've been doing more advertising with the packaging in it so that they could see more of what they're going to see on the shelf.
Oh, tell me about that.
So we've just been, putting the picture, because you often, when you take pictures of flower of the bud, it's not the best looking in the bag, or we're not. So you often see people just showing the bud, but the consumer, it just doesn't see that bud and know, oh, that's the company I want to get.
Yeah,
that's the bag I saw, right? You know what I mean? And so that's the logo, that's the name, and so we've been trying to put that forth in some of our marketing so that they can see that as well.
Oh, okay.
And so that they could recognize it when they go into the store.
Gotcha.
And so we've also kind of focused on that as trying to, different ways, they come in and all of a sudden there's 100 strains in front of them. Which one do they choose, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so, it's just making sure the customer has a good time and they come back, and then every time they try a different flavor, and, and people have different reactions to different marijuana. So I think it's good to try different flavors. And,
oh, totally.
If you're not into a heavy duty indica, you know what I mean, then you don't do those, right? But you got to try it to know it and whatnot. So
yeah, exactly. So I do agree with you that I think bud tenders are the people that make or break even a brand when somebody comes in, because someone could come in and they love. We'll go outside of your guys' brand. Let's say a Fat Panda. They do a lot of marketing and all those kind of things. And someone could come in and someone would be like, the bud tender would be like, man, dude, they're grown in Spokane and it's outdoor. Why are you paying top shelf for that? Try so-and-so, or have you tried so-and-so? And so I do agree that the bud tender is vitally important to the average consumer's thing, but also there are consumers that come in. I was actually just helping a customer today. They come in, and I'm not going to mention the brand, but they weren't going to look at any other oil. We have 100 different kinds of oil, at least 50, 60 brands of different oil, and they were looking at this company's oil. And that's, I think, what every company's goal is to change from a customer to a fan, to someone who knows the quality of your product and knows it's reliable and wants to keep coming back and getting yours. Not just, oh, well, you have the OG Kush I really like, and if that's not there, I'm going to a different brand. You want to keep them in your brand category and those kind of things. So kind of chasing down this rabbit hole, what have you guys done? Are you doing mostly magazine ads? Have you done are you doing big on Instagram, Twitter? Where have you found the best way to get, reach, and touch people and grow your guys' base on any of your brands?
If you or any of the viewers out there know how to pinpoint how all these things are working, please tell me. But
now we're going to get all the social media gurus coming in and asking questions.
Trying to sell me their services.
Yeah.
We have been trying to pinpoint what works and what doesn't work. We do have different ad campaigns in the different magazines. I've been focusing more on some bud tender education and things of, how can I get them to know more about our product and us, and so, because I think they're the ones that, even if you're in the store, it's not great, we're in the store, it's now, are they moving the product, do they have things, and we always want people to know they can call us and ask us questions or do whatever that helps them, make it an easier sale for them, and so we probably not as best with social media. I mean, you guys are really, way on top of your game, and so I have zero presence compared to what's going on right here. This is pretty amazing. This is very fun.
This is where weed's going, man. We're just going to be live all the time. No, I'm just kidding. No. I will say when you literally said, like, anybody reach out, touch this stuff. The Instagram was just nothing but hearts and everyone just blowing it up. That's why I was laughing so hard. But the other thing, I will say that at least finally one of your cohorts at your company has just popped on now on the feed. He wants to say hi. So even your own employees are watching. So now you got to be really careful about what you say. So anyways, but I think that's a good honesty. I mean, like, we didn't grow up with Instagram. I mean, man, dude, I had to figure out, I had to go back when Facebook came out. I had to go back, find my college email that had been long gone, that at college I never really spent much time at, to then finally get a Facebook account. So, I mean, we probably are more the Friendster days and those kind of things, which I don't even know if you were ever even wanting to mess around with that. No. So, so, but
we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we're working at bettering our social media presence. And then there are some of these different events that are for bud tenders. There's some mixers going on for 420, so we're trying to support that, and just different things that support the industry and the people in there, right? And so that we can give back and say hello and just, have time to talk, because everyone's so busy when you're in a store, and the customer comes first. Customer comes in, everything else has to stop. And so and we're trying to figure out what the best way is, right? And so
totally
the magazines, and I do think that a good customer will tell their friends and build brand loyalty, and so that's why we like quality and trust, so that people keep on coming back and back.
I think that's the one great thing about our industry over a different industry, and I'll paint an example, and I want to get your opinion on it. So if I go to the store and let's say I get a beer, and I'm a Bud Light drinker, I'll gladly admit that it's not great tasting, but I got allergies, so at least I can drink it. So, but I don't go, hey, I got this, now I got to share this Bud Light with and put this paint on somebody else. But when the average person comes in, I know at our stores, and especially back in medical days, it's much more social, it's much more sharing, it's much more, and we even joke around, it's puff, puff, pass. And so with that, whatever your brand is it touches more people than even just the person who purchased it. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we here on the industry show concentrate so much about brand and people understanding that, because in marijuana we never got to have that before. Refined Seattle was definitely way out ahead of it. Dama was way ahead of it, but both those companies were in the concentrate side. Dama did basically everything they could possibly do to try and brand their flower, but if you didn't have their jars, it was just going back into whatever retailers or dispensaries or collective store jar went in, and then you didn't know whose weed it was. You know what I mean? And so if that store didn't want to push that it was Dama's flower, they could literally say, "Oh no, dude, this is our in-house." And so I've always felt that the flower, and finally now with it's in a package, you control it. You guys get to control people knowing who you are, but then also you have to deal with the people coming and commenting or replying and all that kind of stuff. So who, if a company does, I know you guys are on social media, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on those platforms, and so people do get to now at least touch you. I know that they have to come into our stores and buy them, but they can at least reach out to you if they have a problem, have a question. Who's responding to those? Who's dealing with that? Is that going directly to you? Is that hitting your cell phone, or do you have, is that Matt, or is that, who are they talking to?
That will be Matt, Julia, but most often than not, they somehow find my cell number and they call me directly, and so I just do the customer service and talk to them. And
That
so
is fantastic.
We had, and it's the first actual complaint I had. This woman had gotten too stoned, and she said that she, was 41 years old, that she had been smoking a lot, and it was at a reputable store. The store called me first, and I told them that they could give my number out to the woman. I'm happy to talk to her.
Wow.
And it was our Girl Scout cookie bomb, and they are very stony. And so she was like, I never have been so stoned. What's wrong with it? I'm like, I'm so sorry, but it said it was over 30% on the label. And she's like, well, I thought I could handle it. And so but she wanted to talk to me about what we do and the whole process.
Okay, was she
that was the best complaint I've ever had in the first one.
Was she calling you while smoking it? Like, was she literally like, this is the, like,
no. She had gone into the store. She smoked it again the next day to see what was going on, and she had just gotten really just too stoned.
Oh,
and
that's
so
great.
she was super nice, and we talked and everything like that, and she just wanted to talk to me, and I told the manager at that store to please give the woman my phone, and we had a great conversation about it, and I said, look, sometimes it's just too much, right? And some indicas affect different people a different way, right? And if you take too much, right, then it's, so we, you were talking about partying and puff puffs pass, and so we came out, we were one of the first people that started having the half-gram joint, and part of me, I'm kind of taking a sidebar, but I love the half-gram joint because you can smoke it. You don't have a half-burned joint, even if it's got a tube to keep the smell. I like a fresh hit, right?
Yeah.
And so we did those. We came out with the joint box that has 4 of them. So you're at a party, you could have your joint, you could give one out, if, even though you're not allowed to legally if you were with your friends and you were doing that or whatever. And so the half-gram joint is just a really nice thing to be able to smoke and get your buzz and not have a bunch of leftover. And that's kind of how we started that one day.
Yeah, I mean, I when we first moved into Rec, I mean, I still remember we picked up a lot of half grams because it just made sense to me. Also, logically, I think I'm the same with you of just like putting it out and then having to really, like, dude, it's a one. You light it and you go. You know what I mean? So, but there is a lot of people that still love the full gram, and more power to them. Trust me, I've seen people do full gram dabs. So there's nothing I can say.
That's a wild thing when I see those on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of stories there, man. We used to have lounges, and I'm definitely waiting for the day that Washington could have been the Amsterdam of the United States if we'd gotten it right. And hopefully someday we will. But obviously Colorado's gotten to take a lot of the thunder and experienced a lot of the benefits just because of them geographically. And so I wish we had been a little bit more thinking forefront-wise than just decriminalization, but that's a story for another day and those kind of things. But one thing this is a kind of a newer question that we've gotten that's come through is, in your opinion, what has been your guys' in all the years from medical or recreational, what has been the least effective marketing you guys have ever done for your brand or that you've seen in a brand? And I'm going to throw out a couple examples. Obviously, there are billboards. Dama used to have a plane flying around with their name banner behind it for like HempFest. And so, I mean, there's people do things, everything. I mean, people literally put, I know that people put signs, like homeless people would hold signs and people would tape their brand underneath it. But just what have you guys done? What have you spent money on? And that you said, man, I don't really know if I would do that again.
Well, I would love to know if people are reading the magazines that we advertise in. So I know a lot of the industry people are reading them, which is fine if the purchasers or the managers or the owners of the stores or businesses you're trying to work with are reading there. I did not understand the billboards that were out before recreational. I think you mentioned the company that had them up. I didn't understand that. Like right now, I see if you have a store and the store is nearby, you're trying to bring a customer to there, I see it. But I don't know about the billboards. We had never done any of those. The worst advertisement, I have not done HempFest. I think that is not I don't know if it would be the worst. I just don't know that it's a place for like a processor to do their brands. There's so much stuff, and people are trying to buy glass and listen to the music and do all that. And I don't do CannaCon or any like that as a. I mean, I go to the
Yeah,
I
you
go
go
to
to
the
it,
event
but yeah.
as a person, but and so I choose not to do those. And I don't know. I can never. Especially, we can't give like special coupons and track it
I
and
know.
do it, and so I don't have any control over it. And it's one thing I don't love because I can't put my finger on it and say this is giving us this kind of ROI. Should we do it? If I've pulled back, I have pulled back on some of the ads, and then but there's other variables. So sales have changed a little bit, but I don't know if they're tied to that or whatnot. And so,
Yep.
and it's funny because my sister she's in advertising and has been for 20 plus years.
Oh, I'm
and
sure she's got lots of advice for you.
she does, and but she's like big corporate advertising. She's done things for Coca-Cola and big
okay.
companies like that, and so I just try to learn and try and figure out how you can do it. But I think trying to get social media and a fan base, I think, is real productive. I don't know. I have not invested in billboards.
Have you done any co-funds, co-marketing, where I'll give you the example. So say a billboard had Dank's Winter Emporium, and then it has logos of the brands we carry, and you obviously come in and pay to have your logo on that brand. Have you tried that? Have you experimented with that? And if you have you ever seen any uptick in that?
I turned that option down.
Oh, okay.
It was a very fancy car payment a month that I wouldn't even drive because I'm a family man.
Yeah.
And I just want to, you've got to make sure there's not a lot of margins for us on the backside on the wholesale
Yes.
end of this. You've got to watch how you do it. And I don't, we're not a big company that it's funded by a big Microsoft group or some big investor. So we're everyday working folk out there, and my team that's listening on this, they work, 40 hours a week. And Matthew, he's a manager and he runs, so he works a lot more than that. And so we focus on things that are out there, and we want to be real with the people. And so, I've got hats like that for, people that are working and doing that. And we want to make sure we give value to our customer. And it goes forward to, the consumer at the other end. So if we sell you something that's Pebbles, right? We like to put on there that it's Pebbles. So we price it right to you. You price it right to the customer, and they know what they're getting. And there's a lot of transparency. Some of the fun things you'll see on some of our bags is you'll see, we try to make everything so you can see it. If you look at our joints, we always make sure that other than the joint box where you can see the tip of the joint, the bottom, so people are real particular about knowing what they're buying, and we like transparency.
That's fantastic. Guys, I'm going to actually do a straight shout out because you asked the question, so I want us getting all the comments. So anybody on any platform, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, give us the comments. Are you actually reading the magazines? I think it's a great question. So guys, are you reading Dope? Are you reading Culture? Are you reading Northwest Leaf? Because us in the industry, we sit there, we have them out on our displays, and people don't even pick them up. But then the magazines come like, oh, we distribute 25,000. Well, I'm just letting you know, 1,000 of those are in my trash dumpster that I have to throw away every month because people aren't even picking them up. So, guys, we want to know, do you find those magazines? Are you only reading those magazines online? Any comments, any help that you can help us here at Dank's Winter Emporium or the Alice Group, we want to hear from you guys. So please chime in those responses. We are way over time, but I have a couple more questions.
Great.
So just hold on.
All right.
One that even I try and always get this one in on the show, and people have already come in and asked, is we're asking every producer processor, this isn't a political show, and so I'm making it very specific, of the new Attorney General under President Trump has come out and made some very statements against our industry, and so I'm just getting a pulse of what every producer process thinks. What do you viewpoint? What's your personal viewpoint about what he said about our industry, or things that may become an effect in our industry because of his viewpoint? So just want to get your opinion.
So I try to stay out of the political realm of this. I'm a heads down kind of forge forward working man. And so when I think about it, he's a businessman, his boss. And so once, we're already moving the needle and raising so many tax dollars. And I don't know how many states, right now have medical. I think it's well over 30.
Yeah.
And I think it's 36 or something like that. Or
I think it actually just bumped up. However, there's a lot that were like it's basically decriminalized, but you can't even get it.
Right.
And so that number is even, I think, now in the 40s, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But of states that are actually getting, either you can grow it and you can do things, it's in that 26-30 range.
And so, in my opinion, and once California goes live with recreational and the real tax dollars start coming in on a nationwide basis, I don't see how they're going to close us down. I think that if the states are coming in and they're showing that they're having good seed to sale, they're having good control over the product, right? I just don't know how they're going to be able to do it because, as you say, basically in 40 states, they've said you can have it, whether you can get it or not legally. Might take a couple more years, but the process has started. And so how you would turn the needle back on this, and then if you step back, not that Trump or Sessions cares about the world. I just got political. I wasn't supposed to be political. I apologize. But, around the world, it's just happening everywhere. Our neighbors in Canada, Australia, different countries, the whole countries are just taking it on. And so I think, we're all pioneers, especially Washington and Colorado really paved the way for, a lot of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that if we keep our heads down, I don't know what they're going to do. If you're doing illegal stuff, they're going to come after you, right? And so you should do it right. You should keep it legal. And I just think once they figure out they could get proper tax dollars on it and stop making it, if they deschedule it, and everyone could be above boards and feel comfortable about running their business properly, and they treated it like widgets, they would get twice as much revenue, and you'd see it move the gross national product. You'd see us as a category. I think soon. Yeah,
we're already over 1/20th of Washington State's tax revenue annually. So I mean, and it's only been a couple of years. So kind of ridiculous. So with that, I have a lot more questions, and I know we've completely run out of time, and so I do apologize. One last thing, final question. Do you guys do tours for fans or just industry people? Some companies don't give tours at all, and because you want to keep it very isolated, very clean environment. And so I just always like to know, where do you guys stand? Is that something that fans are able to do? Is that something bud tenders are able to do? Where do you guys sit on tours?
So as far as tours, for the fans, we love you guys, and I apologize that we can't have you guys come out. There's security concerns, and then we watch out about having too many different, people for contaminants, especially up at the farm.
Yes.
We have an open door policy for all of our vendors.
Okay.
It is really difficult for you as a store owner. I mean, probably because I come from medical, right? If it didn't come from medical, you couldn't touch, see, feel, and smell, right? You know what I mean? And it wasn't more of a, I still came at you professional. I still labeled my bags in medical, but you could open it, you could smell it, you could do so much more. And so I think so we have an open door policy for you guys to come. You're too busy. None of you ever come. We've had probably
okay. We will come. We will come.
If you're ever in Seattle, just come by Monday through Friday. We want to come in. I'll take you out to lunch if I'm in town. There's a good Mexican restaurant down the street that's amazing, and so we have an open door policy for all of our vendors because we want you to see our 80 strains because we know we can't get them to you, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're very transparent. So if you want something, and then I'll tell you, if there's a special product you want, tell us. We'll try and make a product for you, right? That's where I came up with the lava rocks. One of my customers wanted some weed caviar, and so we went and we made lava rocks, right? And so that's I leave that open to you. If there's something you wish you had and you can't control it anymore, then just tell me, and I'll try and make it for you.
That's really funny that you say that, and I'll close on this. Is literally a lot of the brands back in the medical days that we would have on our shelves is a customer actually coming and be like, you should get these guys. And so then we went and got those guys. And so it's almost in that cycle. Someone said, I'm sure it was a customer that was like, man, I'm looking for some caviar gold, or that's a brand, but a caviar type product of oil infused nug. And then he goes to you and you actually do it. So it's nice that you guys are that open and that willing to try and find something to make a customer happy. So guys, with that, I need to say a huge thank you to the Alice Group and and I can repeat it any way you want. And guys, you've been watching The Industry Show on Dank Network. I'm your host, Rand Vaughn from Dank's Wonder Emporium, and thanks for watching. As I said, we go live at 2 o'clock Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays with The Industry Show, and coming up next is the Chronic Cast, Monday through Friday, always at 4:20, where we're smoking new products, trying out things to see if we're going to put them on the shelf, smoking bad weed so you don't have to. Guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.